Have you ever read the book, The Art of War? Well, in this video, I'm going to cover how you can plan your divorce like Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And if you haven't heard of this book, man, I'm telling you, you guys are living under a rock. I would say it is the most important book that you can read as a man in your entire life. All right, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Kane. I'm the Silver Bachelor. This channel is 100% dedicated to dating advice for older guys. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and the notification button because I'm dropping a video every day. All right, Sun Tzu's Art of War. My God, I want to hear from you in the comments what you think of this. But personally, it is the most important book a man can read in their entire life. Why? Because there's critical lessons on business, of course, warfare, which unless you're in the military and things, it doesn't really apply. But those warfare strategies and tactics apply to business, your career, leadership, and relationships. I mean, it covers it all. And I love watching war movies. I'm really intrigued and fascinated about the strategies behind wars and how some wars have been won. So, for example, imagine this. Imagine you were outnumbered 7-1 in tanks, right? 7-1 in tanks. And I believe, if I have this correctly, 1973 war. That was when Israel was outnumbered 7-1 in tanks, and they were taken by surprise, and Israel still won the war. So that's just one example. And I'm not saying, let's focus on the Middle East and what's going on in Israel and all that stuff. No, I'm just making an example. Like, for example, another example is Napoleon and some of his battles that he won and the strategies there, just on and on and on. Different throughout history, there's been great battles and strategic thought behind it. Alexander the Great was a student of the art of war. Same with Napoleon. And there's many generals that have read this book. This is an old Chinese book from back in the day. I can't recall the year that the book was made. But anyways, all that aside, if you're planning a divorce, right, you're thinking of divorcing, I really encourage you to read this book and plan your divorce as if you took these lessons from Sun Tzu's Art of War. All right. So number one lesson, and I'm going to give you five things, okay? So 5 things. Number one is to know your battlefield, right? So how that applies to your relationship is like, know your situation. Do you have children? Do you own a house? How many properties do you have? Are you living in the same city? Like, what's the lay of the land in terms of your situation? Because that's how you need to start planning your exit and your divorce. You need to understand your situation. So, for example, my situation, I was married before for 20 years, and now I've been single for 2.5 years. And my situation was this: no children, okay? But we owned a house together, and I was planning to move to Atlanta. So I'm from Canada, and I've moved to Atlanta for my work. So that's an example of, okay, so what assets do we have, right? We don't have any children. I'm planning to move. So that's what I mean about know your battlefield, all right? So number 2 is assess your strengths and your weaknesses, right? So your specific strengths and weaknesses. And one of the things that, in terms of a weakness that I had, is I was like, well, I can't just take furniture with me. If I separate and move out, I have to buy all new stuff. So I needed to start to budget for this. The other thing, in terms of, I guess, a strength and a weakness, is that I knew I would be moving to Atlanta and I wouldn't be close to my house. The other weakness is that I'll share this, that at that time, or a few years before I separated from my ex-wife, is we decided to pour a ton of money in renovations into the house, like a lot. So we basically didn't have any equity in the house at the time. So that was a factor of like, shit, if we sell the house, we're basically going to break even or maybe even lose money. So that was another thing that I realized. All right, so that's number 2. So number 3 is strategic planning and timing. Obviously, you need to time your exit and you need to plan your exit. So I encourage you guys, if you're thinking of getting a divorce, right? First, hire a lawyer at least for a 1-hour consultation. You might have to pay $300, $400, $500, whatever the price is, and find out how much are you in for financially to leave this marriage. Because if you're the major breadwinner, it's going to cost you money, but that's okay. Pay the price because it's worth your freedom. So you need to find out from a lawyer, how much you're going to have to pay in alimony, right? Or in child support if you have children. The other thing you need to do is open up a bank account without telling your ex or your still wife. Just open up a bank account and prepare yourself for that moment when you tell your employer, switch banks, my payroll is going into this new bank account. All right? Because it just makes it easier to start divvying up bills, and she's not going to just drain your account if you have a joint account. Okay, so just start that, and also plan where you're going to live, how are you going to get your furniture, and if you know for sure this is what you want to do, go ahead and line up everything in an order, right? So you've spoken to a lawyer, you've opened up this new bank account, and you have a place in mind, and maybe you've even signed a lease. Ideally, so once you are ready to sign a lease and you know what the move-in date is, then you just work backwards, right? Okay, I need to make sure my payroll is switched over, and I need to get movers involved. I have enough time to buy some furniture. So this is what I did. I got the bank account. I spoke to a lawyer, got the bank account ready. I found a place, signed a lease, and dropped the bomb on my ex. All right, I dropped the bomb. She knew we were having problems. We already had discussions about this, kind of. And then I just said, well, I've signed a lease. I'm moving out on January 1st. And this was like 6 weeks notice. And for the next 6 weeks, I'm going to be here. And the movers, I basically just told her straight up, boom, 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 boom. And think about this. If you had to fire an employee, it's not full of emotions. You're not arguing. You're not yelling, nothing like that. You are just straight up hitting them with the facts. And you say, we've decided to terminate your employment, or we've decided to move in a different direction. Today will be your last day, or 2 weeks will be your last 2 weeks, something like this, whatever. Here's some paperwork. This is what we're doing. We're going to make sure this is this. It's like boom, 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 boom. So that's exactly what I did with my ex. I laid it out. I said, well, I've signed a lease, moving out on this day. She was completely stunned, and in her words, taken by surprise. And that's the best way to do this. And this is also one of the strategies in the book of Sun Tzu. You exercise your plan very decisively when you know you've lined up the strategy and the tactics. Okay. So next is number 4 is know your opponent. Obviously, you have to think of, will she be vindictive, and protect yourself from anything that you think she might or might not do. So in my case, I am not paying, I did a video on this, so check it out. I'm not paying any spousal support or alimony, right? Kept the house, and I didn't hire a lawyer. One of the reasons for this is because I knew my opponent. And knew my opponent in terms of her top 2 priorities, right? We had 4 dogs at the time. And I knew no matter what, she wanted to keep those dogs. And though I was a little upset about it because I did love the dogs as well, and typically in a divorce, everything's split 50-50, I'm like, wait a minute, I can work this to my advantage. So I'm like, okay. Oh, and she also wanted to stay in the house. She wanted to keep the house. So I was like, instead of looking at it in a negative way, I'm like, wait a minute, how could I use this to my advantage? Hence, know your opponent. So what I did is I said, okay, if you want to keep the dogs and you want to keep the house, I can give those 2 to you. Let's do a real estate deal. No spousal support, no alimony. We'll do a 5-year deal, and we don't have to involve a lawyer. I'll give you those two things. I'll agree to help with the mortgage for so many years. We negotiated what percentage of the equity would be mine versus hers, and I've always earned more money than her. I did all the calculations, and I wanted to instead give her more money on the equity of the house than in higher payments, right? You guys can do all of this as well. And I'm just sharing this because of, you know, tying it back to Sun Tzu's Art of War and my experience in going through this divorce. So you need to know your opponent, right? And you can work around those things in terms of you knowing your opponent. Maybe your opponent is a total bitch, and you need to plan for that. But if you know she is a bitch, she's going to fight you, she's going to hire a lawyer and all this stuff, well, then that's also something you need to consider when you're planning everything. All right, and last, number 5 is to prepare for battle, right? It might get ugly, may not get ugly, but I will leave you with this last thing. In Sun Tzu's book, he said the best battle is the battle that's never fought, right? So I encourage you, if you're going through, you want to have a divorce, you're going through things, to do everything you can to avoid hiring a lawyer, because they are bloodsuckers and they will take all your damn money. They're the only ones that win in this. And there's a lot of things that you can negotiate and figure out for ultimately your advantage. All right. Hope you like this video. Let me know what you think in terms of if you'd like me to make more references to other books that I've read, because I read hundreds of personal development, self-development books, and I'm quite passionate about it. So hope you like this video, and we'll see you next time.